So, hi, thank you so much for taking your time for Rock Antenne.
Oh, anytime,
So,
man, anytime.
where do I catch you right now, actually? So, is it your room or?
Oh, this is a room in my house. I'm in Seattle right now, so I'm in my. This is like my little setup room that I have. I'm kidding. I got kicked out of my house. I live in a studio apartment now. I'm broke. This is my life now. I'm joking. No, I'm in a I'm in a little room in my house where I got my studio set up so I can do things like this. So yeah.
Okay, great. So, in Seattle, like, what's the best part about spring in Seattle?
Nothing. We talk about it rains all the time.
Okay, well, so
No,
nothing like, well,
the best part
the
about
sun
Seattle.
comes out.
The best part about Seattle is it heats up. That's the best part, honestly. It's been cold all winter long, and it's been freezing, and it's starting to get warmer, and we can actually go outside and do stuff. That's the best part about Seattle. But yeah, other than that, though, no. It rains until about May, June. So we're getting
Okay,
there. Yeah.
so it rains a lot in Seattle. So I've never been there.
Certainly. It rains frequently here. It reminds you kind of like North England, you know what I mean, where it's like a lot of rain and dreary and kind of cold. It's probably not as cold as North England, but it's definitely similar. It'll rain for about 8 months here, from about September through now. It'll rain.
Okay, well, it's coming to an end, so this
Yes,
is nice.
God, thank you. Yes.
Okay, so last year you're celebrating kind of right now when it gets warmer, and last year you celebrated like the end of COVID, let's call it that,
Sure.
by not only touring solo, but you were also supporting Shinedown and the Rolling Stones, and you have supported Guns N' Roses back in 2017. What does playing on those like the biggest stages on earth feel like?
This is an interesting question. I was literally just talking to the guitar player from Crowbot about this, and because we had just played a show over the weekend together, and it's a lot, man. It's just a weird experience because at this point in my career, I'll go and like the Rolling Stone shows, 60,000 people out there. That's a sea of people at a big festival ground all the way back. That's an incredible experience. And then you'll go play a club in front of like 300 people, and so it's like the dichotomy, the contrast is so big. But it's an honor. I mean, it's just a pleasure, and it's also very validating. Like you realize that you have been putting in the work to get to these points, and they're popping up every now and again. And now the key is to twist it to where you're not the opener anymore. That becomes your show. So like making those steps, and you're making the right moves.
But now, when you get in those like smaller locations where you play solo, is that like sometimes like the bummer? So you played in front of like 60,000 people, and now not that many, or is it like you prefer it because the people that are there because of you?
Well, it's a little different, when I get there, playing with my band and doing like the headlining shows, like those are just different. I mean, that's just a different feeling altogether, especially because being a foreign act over in Europe and in the UK and in France and all that, like that, and having people show up at your show, never knowing that you've never seen these people, you don't know anyone there. That is a whole other experience, and that's an honor. That right there is such a it's a feeling I can't explain. The French would say je ne sais pas, like you don't really know. Like it's a hard to explain, but that is just an honor. It's a pleasure to be able to do something like that. It's very always emotionally moving. I find myself sometimes mid-song trying not to cry in front of 200 people at some random show in Amsterdam, because you're so just proud and elated that people are just able to hear you and listen and have interest in what you're doing from across the seas, and that's the goal. That's the life goal, is to make sure that, you get out there, not just in America. I mean, for the longest time, I thought to myself, I want to be big in America, but you forget like how big the world is, and that maybe someday you're gonna be bigger even in other places, so that's a whole different feeling. Yeah.
So what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you while you were on tour?
I can't tell you because I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding, man. No, craziest thing that's ever happened to me on tour. I'll tell you what. I don't know if it's the craziest experience, but it is probably the first time I went to France was probably the most emotional experience I had, because
when was that?
That was the end of 2021. Was when we went to France, and my first record to come out. We'd just been touring for 3 months in the U.S. and we had in fact, it was the first time we were supposed to come to Germany. Actually, we had some stuff planned, but the pandemic changed all that.
But you were here last year, right?
I was there last year for sure. But I was after moving the dates, right? We had to move everything because of COVID.
Yeah.
But we had gone out to Paris. We had one show booked in Paris and one show in the UK. And, while I was in Paris, I mean, the show was pretty much almost packed out, and we played this place called The New Morning, the very first show. And I'll never forget it, man, how emotional that was for me as an artist. That was probably the craziest experience I ever had, to be honest with you, because it was my first time overseas, my first time in Paris, which was beautiful, an amazing experience. I was there for a week doing promo for the show, and here I am in front of all these media outlets in front of me, and I had all these crazy, huge interviews from Le Parisien, which is like People magazine for us, and like that was a crazy experience for me, I think, and that kind of set the precedent for everything else, and it was emotional, and then I remember this too. I remember like crying on stage and reading about it in national papers, and I was like, never again, never gonna cry again on stage. But it was just the most heartwarming and touching experience I think I'd ever had,
But did you cry again?
No, I didn't cry again since that moment. Not on stage, at least. I mean, I've definitely cried, but
well, everybody does. But before you got to this, like traveling the world and everything, you had a very long way leading up to your career. Yeah. And I love that you're wearing this T-shirt because, you grew up in the 90s in Seattle when, Nirvana. And you mentioned multiple times that Kurt Cobain was a source of inspiration for you and probably still is. Yeah. And I did the math, and you were like about 8 years old when he died.
Yeah, I was.
Do you remember what it felt like when you heard about his death?
I do. I don't. It didn't impact me directly, but there was this. Similar to when Chris Cornell died, man. It was just like this depression that came over the city, and we all felt it because that was our champion, and that was our hero, And so I do remember how that felt. And as a kid, you don't really know what's going on. Like you can tell, like you just know that everybody's just kind of it hits everyone. And it doesn't matter who you were either. I mean, whether you listen to grunge or not. Everyone knew who Kurt Cobain was at that time. He was one of the biggest pop figures in the world. And he came from your little town, this little town in the Pacific Northwest, And so like that, I think that impacted us. It hit us more than we even recognized at that time. And since then, cats like Lane Staley and the passing of Chris Cornell, and these are legendary artists. And every time one of, these legends from that era passes or something happens to them, we all feel it. And then we feel it deeply.
So it's like a connection in Seattle, like you all know your heroes, and so you share this sad. Yeah. We all share that feeling, that sad emotion that we that hits us. I mean, it's like Seattle. We don't really have superstars in Seattle, right? Like everyone, even if you are a superstar here, it's like we're not going to walk down the street and people aren't going to sit there and there's not going to be paparazzi all around and all that stuff, And yeah, I guess for like a city in the US, there are not as many. Yeah. Like here in Germany, it's like, where are superstars anyway? So
right. Yeah.
But yeah.
See, we don't really do superstars like that. I mean, unless you go to LA and people are like, oh, it's Duff McKagan. It's that's LA. Seattle's very casual. Seattle's like, maybe I'll come up and talk to him. Maybe I won't. I don't know. That's cool. He's here though, And like cats can go to dive, but it's legendary stories of like some like Eddie Vedder, for instance, will go to a dive bar and chalk up a conversation the whole time, and the bartender will know it, but no one else will. And so this person's like, man, who was that guy? He was really cool. No, that was Eddie Vedder. Like, oh, Eddie Vedder. My God, so it's a very casual place, like, so that I think that's part of why we feel so connected to each other is because that there's no hierarchy. There's no like you're better than me or that you live in the clouds. It's like everybody pretty much is on level here in Seattle.
Yeah, that's nice. So, but you're wearing the T-shirt and everything. But it would be too easy to say that you're like following Nirvana's footsteps in Seattle, right? Because your music is much more diverse, and you can't really pinpoint it like to one genre. So, when you're in the stage of songwriting, do you like beforehand envision the feeling of the song before writing the lyrics, or is it more like, oh, that text sounds deep, maybe some grunge with some blues. Let's go for that. Or what's that like?
I think that it's a little of all of it, to be honest. For me, I try to get into the songs, and I just try to, express what's in my heart to express. And I love so many different kinds of music and sounds, and hip hop to grunge to gospel to all these things. I'm just trying to capture a vibe, and I want to express that vibe, and I want to my goal is always to try to bring people into rock or into my genre, whatever that may be, and from all over, from different perspectives. And maybe you don't listen to rock, maybe you're more of a country person, but here's a song for you, in my genre. Maybe you're more into hip hop or EDM. Well, here's a song for you in my genre. So I always want to definitely pay homage and respect to where I came from in Seattle, and definitely I'm always trying to make sure I keep that Seattle sensibility in my music. But I want to continue to express and bring people into my music that don't necessarily listen to rock or aren't necessarily into what I do.
Yeah, because nowadays, like everybody, not everybody listens to rock all the time. Not everybody listens to pop all the time. It's very much more fluent than it was when you had to go and buy something to listen to it.
Right.
Now you just hear whatever you want. So it totally makes sense. And I think it works very well for you. So
Thank you.
Your upcoming album, Chronicles of the Kid, will be released this June 23rd. Yeah, yep. June 23rd. And everything you gave to us beforehand reminds of anything related to school, which makes sense with the title. But what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think back to school?
School? Oh man, my ADD just taking over is what I remember, man. That's all I know. It's like my ADD was just like, school's cool. And like, I was actually really brilliant in school. I was really great. I was really smart. But my ADD just was like, go play a guitar. And so that's all I did was play guitar in school, man. So that's what I think about. And Chronicles of the Kid, is really about that kid that grew up, you know what I mean? And it's about, going from those stories of being a kid and Child of the State was really my origin story, and Chronicles of the Kid is the next chapter of that. Like that's who I was and who I would become, and this is who I am now. Chronicles of the Kid is about it picks up from when I got signed my first big record deal to now, and what's been going on, what's been happening, what I've seen, the world as I've seen it in my experiences, the fame, the temptations, the highs and the lows, and that's what it's about. And so, when I think about Chronicles of the Kid, and even myself being in school, man, I can see it now, like back then you don't really see it. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to do my thing and hope it all turns out. But if I were to look back at time, I'd be like, yeah, kid, you were meant to play music, because here you are, this kind of tormented soul who is expressing himself in poetry and song. And like, what better fitting, career choice than to be an artist, to express yourself through music and words.
But you weren't like always an artist, like you had your Frisbee career. And I have to be honest, when I read about that, I was like, Frisbee is a sport? Because I didn't know that, because in Germany, Frisbee is like something you throw for your dog or for your children. Yeah. And then I was looking it up, and it looks kind of like a mixture of rugby, but with a disc.
Yeah, we would say football here. Yeah, we'd say American football.
Yeah.
Disc. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was similar concept though. I mean, actually, probably even closer to rugby. Rugby is a lot more passing. I played ultimate frisbee for years. Played for Team USA in World Championships against countries like Germany and France and England and things like that. So. Yeah, I played ultimate for years, man. And it was a vibe. It was cool. It was fun. It was something that really got that when I talk about this exposure to the world, wanting to travel and things like that, that was the first thing that got me out of my little hometown was playing Frisbee. I got to go travel all over the country, and the West Coast, the East Coast. I got to go see, Finland, and I got to go see Canada, and I went all over, and so that really gave me this bug to travel, and I was really competitive and athletic at the time too, which really, it scratched all the itches, but even through that time, I was playing guitar. I remember going to parties, they call them Frisbee parties, which is like the after party after a tournament, and being live bands there, they would have me jump up and jam and play, and I was still writing music and trying to be something, so yeah.
But except traveling the world, what did you learn as a professional sportsman that helped you establish your career in music?
Oh, what did I learn, man? How to be a leader was the big thing, and how to take what I do and be able to translate that, articulate it to people, and but being a leader was the biggest thing I learned how to do, because over time, and I was at one time I was one of the best in the world, and so I got asked to captain a team or two, or become, lead something, whether it be on defense or offense or whatever, be a leader and be able to communicate with people. And I mean, that taught me a sense of entrepreneurship, and be able to how to lead my own company, to lead my own band, to lead my, my life in a certain way, and to get good at that kind of stuff. That was really helpful. And that taught me how to be who I am today. I think those are skills I use now, even to continue my career as an artist.
Yeah, and you were in the world championship, so you were really successful.
Yeah, I was really good. I was really good at one point, really good.
That's really cool. So, but we're not sports antenna, we're rock antenna. So we gotta get back to the album, which is great. What I've heard so far, and one song from Chronicles of the Kid that really stood out to me was "Blood in the Water," because like you hear it, and there's this extraordinary mix of hurt, but there's also this power in it.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does this song mean to you?
The power of hurt. That's really what you just quantified it right there. It's the power of hurt. Sometimes that in life, we're not always dealt the cards that we want to be dealt. We're not always dealt the greatest hands to play the game, but it's up to you. There's a great power in taking that pain, or taking the cards you've been dealt, and learning how to take that and they call it alchemy. It's like the spiritual term is alchemy, taking it and learning how to make it into something brand new, and so I think that's what Blood in the Water is for me. And that, like, I am the product of my parents. I'm the creation of my parents. And they in turn pass along the things that they had to struggle with their whole lives. And while those things, they are very deep in my heart and on my mind, I choose not to let those be my story. Instead, I choose to take those and flip it and tell a new story and become something different for my kids, and pass along a different story for them to tell in my family. Even, I can't tell you how many kids in my family now start picking up guitars, or, or start learning how to write or sing, or involved in music now, and just seeing that, someone like their uncle or their dad or who it may be, do what they do. I think it changed the game. It changed everything for them. And there's a great power in that,
Okay, so there's like some scientific background to it as well, because there are like scientists who say that there's something like generational trauma as well. Yeah. So there are parts of history that are in our DNAs, and we give that to our children. And so, of course, we all have to learn how to express this. And so I think that's a song that will, a lot of people will hear that song and they will feel it in their very own way. And that's a beautiful thing.
That's always my goal, is to connect with people on that level. I just came from the South in the U.S., and I don't travel to the South super often, but when I do, I'm always reminded of how, a lot of people in the South definitely have been through what I've been through, as in terms of poverty, and learning how to like get out of that, or like the pain that comes with poverty. There's a lot of things that come in those upbringings that are very similar. And so it's my goal always to touch people's hearts and to remind people that we're only human, we're only human. But with that comes this great power to create. And so let's create something beautiful together. Let's create something new.
So there was one song when I looked it up on YouTube, there were a lot of comments that were like, "This is how a rock song is supposed to sound like. This is how it's supposed to be written." It's filthy, and I saw a clip of you explaining that word, like filthy, and you said it's an epiphany of who you are as an artist. And I'm not a native speaker in English, and a lot of our listeners aren't as well. So could you maybe give an explanation why filthy in this sense is nothing negative?
Yeah, filthy is not. Here's the thing, man. In Seattle, when you're growing up, and when I grew up, like even now, like kids, they'll say it, man. If you're from like the urban part of Seattle, say you're from like near downtown or like the core of Seattle, it's like we have our own lingo, And so for us, I mean, on the East Coast, they have a term called wicked, which is the kind of similar thing: wicked awesome, wicked cool, wicked this, wicked that. And in Seattle, it's filthy. Filthy means something that it's almost like Cockney rhyming slang. You ever heard of Cockney rhyming slang, where they say, like, they'll say words like "give me the bees," it's like "give me the peas."
Okay,
right?
yeah, okay, yeah, I think I get it.
The bees and honey means "give me the money," "give me the bees," "give me the peas," "give me the honey." So in Seattle, it's like saying filthy is like saying cool or dope or fresh. You know, it's like we would say, "Oh, that's filthy," or "You're filthy." Like that means you're the best of the best, the prime. You are the best example of that there is of what you do. You know, so that's kind of the term. But also for me, the song was really about, man. You know, I've been to places like Hamburg, Germany, man. I've seen like some of the red light district stuff, and I've seen like how Germany embraces this whole other culture of itself, you know, with that and without judgment too. That's the thing about it. It's like, this is what I find really cool about Germany and also other cities in Europe. France has this, Amsterdam has this too, but you know, it's like there's an embrace of like this sexual expression. There's an embrace of this human nature, this whole other side of human nature, which maybe isn't the halos over our heads and like the good, like we're going to try to do the best we can being it's like, it's more about filthy's more about embracing that side of our expression, like the sexual expression, the nature of being, but what's bad is good, you know, being a misfit. Maybe you don't fit in. Maybe you're into something different, you know. So that song was really written for those people, man. Like that song hit really hard over here in the strip clubs, you know, because I think that the people that really gravitate toward a song like that are people that feel like misfits. Like what they do is, you know, in a sense, taboo. It's not like the norm. It doesn't fit with the status quo, you know. So I wrote that song for the misfits like me.
So I think everybody is a misfit in some way because, like, what society wants from us is like everything, and nobody can compete with that.
You can't. Nope.
So,
no way.
What's your favorite song of the upcoming album?
Man, my favorite song off the upcoming album. That's a good question. You know what? I think "Living for the Fall" is one of my favorite songs off the record. Just because that's just such a vulnerable song, you know. But I think if I had to choose my favorite song, it might be Other Side. Other Side might be my favorite song from this record, I think, you know, and for reasons I think that most people will be surprised about, and that I'm always trying to cross genres and cross platforms and cross generations. And there's this whole new generation of rockers that are really fans of classic rock, but are expressing it in a new way. And so they're going to different places to find their rock. And so for me, I think Other Side was a way to reach out to those places and still be true to where I came from. So I think that's my favorite song.
Great, thank you. So I wish you all the best for the release and everything that follows it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Germany the next
absolutely.
time. What are your plans for this year after releasing?
Just tour, you know, tour. You know, my album comes out in June, and then I just take off and go see the world after that. You know, I'm going to be in Europe. I've got some stuff planned for the US between August and September. October, I'm back in Europe. November, I'm probably in Europe too. So, you know, we got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm just going to keep touring and keep working and hopefully coming to see smiles like yours all over the world, you know.
Okay, so maybe a little vacation in between.
There's no time for vacation. There's no time for vacation. There's no way.
Yeah,
no way.
But isn't that so annoying when you go to all these amazing places and then there's
no time to see it.
No time to see it.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's all right because you know that it's like this, man. It's like when you go on a date and everything goes well and somebody they leave their stuff at your house. You know, it's just an excuse to see them again. You know what I mean? So, you know, I find it as if I don't get to see your town when I'm there, just an excuse for me to come back and do it the next time. You know, so I think that it keeps me coming back.
Yeah, well, that's a positive take on that. So thank you so much for chatting with me. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.